Start recording.
Okay.
There we go. You're
Try
ready.
not to say anything too embarrassing from this point on. All right, shall I go ahead?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So, hi, my name is William. I'm a software engineer at Google. Scott tells me that I'm going to talk to you for about 5 minutes-ish about who I am, what I do, where I've come from, and then you're going to be interrogating me. So I'm going to do my best not to put you to sleep, try to keep this short, and I also should probably say up front that, well, I work for Google. I am not speaking on behalf of Google. None of the opinions I tell you are Google corporate opinions, etc., etc. So like I said, I'm a software engineer working out of Google's Chicago office. I work on web search infrastructure, which in the haziest of terms means that I work on one of several layers of software that work together to provide an answer when you ask Google a question. So Scott asked me to sketch out kind of how I got here, and insofar as any adult will ever be able to tell you the course of events that led to their current state in life, here we go. So I probably started seriously programming in middle school when I got a TI-89 graphing calculator. I don't know if you guys still use those. Hopefully you're using something that isn't quite as bad. If you're still using 83s, I feel bad for you. At any rate, so I started in middle school programming my 89 in TI-89 Basic. I wrote several games, played around with math on it, as you know, I was interested in that. And I continued to do that through high school. I got pretty reasonably good high school grades, but I did spend a heck of a lot of time in class not paying attention in favor of instead programming my graphing calculator.
Sounds like me.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
As our local computer expert said, it sounds like him.
Okay. That sounds promising. Yeah, I mean, I advocate for this route because like high school as a whole is pretty easy, but like I want to leave in the caveat though that like you should still be bothering to get good grades in high school. Like don't do it to the point that you get terrible grades. And the fact is that like getting good grades in high school is pretty easy on the whole, so you should still have plenty of time to do other stuff. But sorry, lecture over. Other things I did first robotics team in high school. I don't know if you guys have a first team in range of you guys, but that was pretty fun. At the end of high school, I applied to a couple colleges, among them Purdue, in Indiana, and got accepted there. Kind of threw a dart at a wall as far as picking a major. Like I was like, oh, engineering sounds good. I want to do something related to computing. And so I picked electrical engineering because I wanted to study something that wasn't just software, and figured, you know, learning more about hardware would be a good idea to keep from winding up as a keyboard jockey. Avoiding winding up as a keyboard jockey didn't really work out for me, but as keyboard jockeying goes, this gig is pretty good. So I kept up the hobby programming all through Purdue. And as far as coursework goes, I took the standard electrical engineering course where on like current and voltage and like signals processing, but I also took a lot of the sort of computer engineering oriented electives at Purdue, which are things like digital systems design, like digital logic and algorithms. Senior year I took an old school like Lisp AI class. Let's see, I also in summer 2007 did the Google Summer of Code internship thing. Like it's not an internship, it's more of a program where they pay you a stipend to work on open source software for the summer, and that is, let me tell you, that is a great way to get your parents off your back when you're sleeping until noon and only working 4 hours a day and doing apparently nothing else in your with your life all summer. Also during college, I continued to mentor First Robotics, There were a couple of local area high schools with robotics teams, and I was one of the college-aged mentors on that. When I graduated college in 2009, I didn't really have a plan, and so I went and talked to one of my former professors and wound up working for a couple years in a chemical engineering lab doing software development for them back at Purdue. And then at the end of that, I decided to get a real grown-up job and applied around to a couple places. And so I applied to Google via the online application and got accepted. Let's see, Scott also asked me to sort of outline what I do in a typical day, which, like, this is fairly endemic among software companies, but like here at Google, usually I roll into work around 10 or 11 in the morning. Yes. And a typical day for me consists of, well, reading a heck of a lot of email, because I get a heck of a lot of email, doing code reviews, which is where I review proposed code changes by other people, and of course, spending a decent amount of the day programming new stuff as well, and corresponding with other engineers about how to do it right. In a typical day, I'd leave around 6 or 7 at night, though sometimes I stay later if I'm working on a particularly interesting problem. The work atmosphere here is pretty relaxed, I'd say. It's very results-oriented, which means that, like, as long as you are getting your work done and like not causing problems, as long as you are communicating well with like your teammates and like getting your work done, then people are not too concerned about like when you show up at the office. Yeah. So that is a brief rural tour of some of the questions that Scott sent me beforehand to talk about, and it looks like I've been talking for about 5 minutes, so I will just open it up to questions from you guys at this point.
Not yet. Them stand in front of the camera.
It's like, yeah.
Right there.
All right. So what are the facilities at Google like? Like, I've heard they have their own gym and then their own like cook there and all sorts of fancy things there.
Well, it's more exciting on the main Google campus, but like, yeah, the perks here on site are pretty good. Like, we have an on-site gym, and of course they feed us every day. I know, like, the Google headquarters has all kinds of ridiculous stuff. Like, there's like an on-site bowling alley and a bunch of other, and some other like random interesting things. Like, I think there's a hacker space. There's all kinds of interesting stuff on the main Google campus. Our office is kind of boring in comparison. All we have is free food and an on-site gym and like a music room and stuff.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem.
Is your attire the typical attire of just you or everybody at the office?
Well, so the way I am dressed is kind of the minority opinion among this office, but that's because our office is like mostly salespeople. But yeah, the way I am currently dressed is pretty typical for the engineering staff at Google.
So when you applied, what did the application? What was on your not references, but like the work you did before to make them look at you?
I'm not entirely sure. Like, so I don't have a lot of visibility into how hiring is done in detail at this point. But I can tell you like the stuff that I put on my resume that I think helped. Like, I had a lot of sort of extracurricular software experience. Like, I'd been programming on like hobby projects for like at least 5 years before that. And so I had a bunch of like little projects I could point to that I'd done. And like some open source software contributions as well. So like, which a lot of software companies look at like open source contributions as a way to verify that you have actually done something useful ever, because they can go and look at it and verify it directly as opposed to taking your word on it. But yeah, I think for me, probably what did it was just a wide array of hobby projects that I could like talk about and point to across a bunch of different domains. So like I had things like I tried to build a 3D engine, like a 3D graphics engine at one point from the pixels up. I've written a couple of games AIs. Like I wrote a tic-tac-toe AI in high school. And yeah, and then I had a bunch of related coursework, like I took an artificial intelligence class in college, as well as the standard gamut of computer engineering classes.
All right.
What all APIs have you worked on for Google services?
What APIs have I worked on for Google services?
Yes.
It's mostly like internal stuff. Like I can't tell you in too much detail what it's about because most of it is kind of confidential, but broadly what I've been working on is Google search, and in particular the layer of software that takes that consults the search index, like the search index databases at Google, and then takes that and turns it into a final like web page, like HTML, to send back down to your browser.
All right. No, not everybody at once.
Sorry, what?
Said not everyone talk at once. Do they have any interesting questions on your application?
Oh boy, it's been a while. I think the ones that I found most useful, the unusual ones that I think were ones that marked me out were things like what kind of side projects do you do? How many side projects do you have? Describe them. Like a lot of companies don't really seem to have any conception that people who are good at software in particular tend to have a lot of personal projects that they're doing just for the heck of it. And Google is a company that understands that and uses it as a hiring signal.
Are you working on anything right now as far as the side project?
Yeah, so like right now, I've been working on and off with my buddy on a game called Scrumbleship, which I don't know if you can get it phonetically from that, SCRUMBLE ship.com, which is kind of a Minecraft and space game. And yeah, that has been a lot of fun because I've been helping him on like network protocol design, security design, helped him design the auto update mechanism, which we haven't released yet. Let's see, and just like helped this friend of mine build this 3D game starting from nothing over the last couple of years.
Do you do a lot of SQL work with your game?
With the game?
Yeah, for like storing your server, say, plugins or stuff you want to add on?
Not right now. We don't really have businessy, like SQL is kind of better for if you have things that can neatly be condensed into records. Like anything that kind of looks like things that you might employ an army of secretaries for. SQL is pretty good for, and most of the data store stuff we've been working on has not been in that category. I mean, we have a little bit around it because things like user account management and managing what people are authorized to download, like which version of the game, and like managing the user account store is stuff we've used SQL for.
What's your favorite part of the job?
What's my favorite part of it?
Yeah.
Let's see. The hours are pretty nice, but that's sort of an ancillary benefit. I think my favorite part of working here is honestly that in a lot of ways Google has really cutting-edge computing infrastructure internally. And like, this isn't as true as maybe it was a few years ago, but for a long time, Google's, I think, sort of infrastructure was easily like 5 years ahead of the outside world. And to a certain extent, that's still true. So just working at a place where everything I need to do is so easy, like where all the big hard problems have been solved and I can concentrate on the sort of novel stuff, is really nice.
So where you're at there in Chicago, do they have people that are working on things like the Google Glass and the Chromebooks and things like that? Or is it all software based? Search engine based, I guess.
I am not actually sure to what extent I can talk about what's going on in our office. Let me quickly hop over to the careers to the office website and see what it says. Yeah, I'm not sure I can actually tell you precisely what projects are at our office at the moment. But I mean, some of the stuff that people have worked on here, which I know I can tell you about because it's on our office website, is things like the data liberation front and the transparency report. Like, I don't know if you know what data liberation front is. It's this effort within Google to make it trivially easy for you as a user to get all of your data out of Google in a usable form. So like to get all of your emails out, all of your Google Plus posts out, all of your calendar stuff, and get it out in a usable form that then you can go put it into another service easily. Let's see. And like other stuff that is in this office is like, you know, the search infrastructure team that I work on. And like previous things have been things like some people involved in ads, like the ads serving and selling infrastructure.
Yes, boring.
No one has a good question?
Oh, it doesn't have to be a good question.
It's any question.
What do you like to do on your free time?
Let's see, a decent amount of it is hobby programming, a decent amount of it is reading, and then I've been doing swing dancing like Lindy Hop in Charleston since college. And I'm sure Scott can tell you a great deal more about that than I can, because he was in my swing dance club.
Do you have any pets?
Nope, not right now. I'm thinking of getting a cat.
Sure.
You should tell the Chrome OS developers to fix their dev channel where you can put icons on the dashboard.
Say again.
You gotta speak up, buddy.
On the dev channel or the developer channel on the Chromebooks for Chrome OS, you should tell them to fix their icon on the bottom to someone really buggy.
Okay. Actually, if you have like a legit problem, you could drop me an email. Scott has my email, and then I can go like see if there's actually a bug filed internally about it.
Yeah, right now our school is 1-to-1 with Chromebooks, so every student has their own Chromebook.
Yeah.
They're finding all kinds of stuff.
I imagine so.
Parts they're working, but you know, people drop things and there's yeah.
They blocked Hangouts.
Yeah, they blocked Hangouts from students.
You can't get
Yeah.
Well, because they were using them in class. They were using Hangouts in class instead of doing their classwork.
Yeah,
became-
that seems pretty plausible.
It became a
So glad I'm not in hang school anymore.
hang out with people while in class. Not say anything, but just have the camera turned on the Chromebook so they could see what's going on in other teachers' classes.
Yeah, I would totally believe that. Yeah, one of the nice things about, like, I don't know if this actually helps in high school, but one of the nice things about like getting onto college and in adulthood is being in a world where people actually start trusting you to make decisions in your own best interests instead of trying to babysit you.
Did you have to go through all the same first-year engineering classes that other students would?
Yeah, I mean, I tested out of a great deal of the general education requirements and a lot of the low-level math and all of the chemistry. But otherwise, yeah, I did do first-year engineering. Oh yeah, so here's some unsolicited advice. Do you guys do AP tests?
Yes.
Take as many of them as you can. Take as many AP classes as you can. Take as many AP tests as you can. The reason is that an $80 test can easily get you out of a like $2,000 course later on.
Are there any promotions in your field?
Any what?
Promotions.
Promotions.
Promotions? Yeah. Like there are multiple different levels of like engineering seniority here, as well as like other career tracks like management, like engineering management or sales management or sales. But yeah, like I assume you're talking about like job promotions.
He's asking you. Oh, what are you asking specifically? Job promotions?
Yeah. Job promotions.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, there is room for advancement, you might say. I mean, I think that I don't have any specific privileged access to like salary data, but if that's the sort of thing you're worried about, I would recommend logging on to glassdoor.com and looking up like Google job titles at various levels. But like roughly speaking here, like one of the things I like is that there is a significant sort of technical track for advancement. In a lot of other places, I've heard that in order, like after a certain point, there just is no more room to get promoted as an engineer. Whereas here, there is basically, like at other places, you get to a sort of ceiling on your promotion levels as engineers, after which you have to go into management in order to get promoted further. And that is not the case here. There are people who are like many promotion levels higher than I am, who are still basically just doing frontline engineering work and getting paid like gazillions of dollars for it.
Do you think Google would ever support?
Sorry, say again?
For Chrome OS, do you think Google would ever support the JavaScript or Java plugins? So since they already support Flash.
I do not know. I'm sort of surprised they don't support Java. Like I know that Flash, like I know that like a Flash ships with Chrome. I'm not really sure why they wouldn't bother with Java. But I don't have like any specific knowledge on that. I'll bet if you like hopped online and looked around for this, you would probably find some discussion on like the Chrome OS bug tracker to tell you what the engineers are thinking when they're deciding whether or not to include Java.
Any other just good advice for these guys? We have mostly freshmen in here.
Let's see. Well, I mean, this is a sort of trivial one I said, which sounds bizarrely specific. But take as many AP classes as you can and try to test out as much stuff as you can, like now and in the future. In general, like one of the things that makes school boring is when it's too easy. And what I found was always the case for me was that always taking the hardest classes I could meant that it was usually not boring, and that it was also I learned more. And like I would say back to my high school self, who kind of realized this, that like I don't know if your high school is any better than my high school, but my high school, a lot of the classwork was honestly super easy, which may not be apparent while you're in it. But once you get onto college where like things actually get legitimately hard, you will look back at most of your coursework that you did in high school and realize, wow, that was a piece of cake. I don't understand why I ever had trouble with it. And internalizing that now and just taking on the attitude of like, okay, I'm just going to do this I'm just going to do what it takes to get A's, which is not much, and then spend the rest of my time doing something else worthwhile is, I think, a good attitude to take. So, like, there's a specific case of, take as many AP classes as you can for simple financial reasons. Test out of as much as you can, because taking dumb like general education courses in college is boring, and if you don't have to take them, then you have time to go take crazy, interesting classes at the college level. And then, like, the other piece of advice I'd give is try to spend your free time doing something that's sort of legitimately interesting. Like, work on projects that interest you. Like try to spend a minimal amount of time watching TV and lots of time doing things like writing software or building things or writing a book or something like that. Like, develop interesting hobbies now. Wow, that sounded really preachy. Sorry, guys.
Was there anywhere else you were interested in besides Google before you got hired?
Yeah, so I applied to like Amazon and Facebook as well, and maybe even Microsoft. My reasoning when I was out applying for jobs was, okay, I'm either going to work at some place like Google or Amazon or Facebook, which are well known as like really good engineering cultures, or I'm going to do whatever it takes to work outside of the field of software engineering entirely. So, like, I applied to those companies, and then other things I was doing was, since I have an electrical engineering degree, I was applying to like more standard, conventional engineering companies. Like, for example, when I got the offer from Google, I was about halfway through interviewing for a company that was doing unmanned aerial vehicle engineering, which sounds really cool, but looking back, I'm really happy that I wound up in a job that isn't in the defense industry.
Well, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day to talk to us.
No problem.
Yeah.
guys want to wave goodbye?
Thank you. Bye. I was not here, but bye.
Take care, Will.